They said she was replaceable, just another face in 1,000 government negotiators, calm, competent, and obedient. But they were wrong, because when the enemy asked to talk, they didn't ask for the new guy or the team. They asked for her, by name. Her name was Evelyn Shaw, and until 2 months ago, she was the government's quiet secret weapon. A woman who could talk down anyone from armed rebels to stubborn CEOs. Her gift wasn't just words, it was the way she listened. She made people feel seen even in war rooms full of steel and suspicion. But brilliance rarely comes without enemies. It started with whispers. She was too emotional, too empathetic, too soft. When she questioned an operation that left civilians hurt, her boss, a stiff man named Director Hale, called her unreliable. The word spread like poison. Then came the reshuffling. A new recruit, Marcus Trent, young, charming, ex-military, was brought in to modernize negotiations. Evelyn's files were transferred to him without warning. They told her she could take indefinite leave, a fancy way of saying you're done here. For weeks, Evelyn tried to ignore the sting. She spent her days in her small apartment, overlooking Washington, D.C., watching rain bead on glass. Sometimes she'd stare at the phone, half hoping someone would call. No one did. The silence felt heavier than any battlefield. Then came the news flash. Rebel leader Ivan Koren agrees to peace talks with U.S. delegation. Ivan Koren, the name alone carried weight. Once a university professor, now the most dangerous insurgent in Eastern Europe. For 7 years, he'd fought a war no one could end. Governments tried sanctions, threats, back channels. Nothing worked. And now, after thousands of dead and millions displaced, he finally wanted to talk. The new negotiator, Marcus, was leading the talks. The media hailed him as the new face of diplomacy. Evelyn tried to smile, even as her stomach twisted. But the twist came 3 days later. At 2:13 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something in her gut told her to. Evelyn Shaw. The voice was low, tight with urgency. Yes? This is Langley Command. We need you to come in immediately. She froze. There must be a mistake. I'm not with the agency anymore. The voice hesitated. Then came 5 words that made her blood run cold. The enemy is asking for you. An hour later, she stood under the white lights of a secure briefing room, her old badge reactivated. A dozen eyes on her. Marcus was there too, his expression caught between relief and resentment. Director Hale, pale and tight-lipped, broke the silence. Koren refuses to speak to anyone else. He mentioned your name directly. Says he'll only negotiate if you're in the room. Evelyn blinked. Did he say why? No, Hale said, jaw clenched. But you're coming in as an observer, not a lead. Marcus will still handle official dialogue. Evelyn bit back her anger. Observer. They still couldn't give her credit even when the enemy demanded it. 2 days later, a jet carried them across the Atlantic to a neutral site, a glass-walled compound deep in the Swiss Alps. Snow capped the mountains like white guards. Inside, the air smelled of metal and fear. Evelyn watched through one-way glass as Marcus met Koren for the first time. The rebel leader looked nothing like the monster the media painted. Older, worn, with sharp gray eyes that had seen too much. He spoke calmly, his accent clipped, his posture steady. But there was something else, an undercurrent. Evelyn could feel through the glass. Every time Marcus spoke, Koren's eyes flicked toward the mirror. On the second day, Koren refused to continue. I want the woman, he said, the one who spoke to my brother. Evelyn's heart skipped. She had spoken to Koren's brother once, years ago, during a failed ceasefire. The man had been desperate, begging for safe passage for civilians. She remembered his voice breaking, His last words before the line went dead. Tell Ivan she tried. Corin's brother had been killed days later. When Hale and Marcus cornered her afterward, their faces were storm clouds. What the hell did you tell him back then? Marcus snapped. Nothing classified, Evelyn said. Just that I was sorry for the loss. Hale sighed heavily. Well, now you're his obsession. He won't talk unless you're in the room. Fine. You'll sit in. But one wrong move and this whole thing burns. Evelyn nodded slowly. When she entered the negotiation room the next morning, every camera lens turned toward her. Corin stood, a ghost of surprise flickering across his face. Then he smiled faintly. You kept your word, he said. Evelyn didn't know what to say. She sat down, feeling the weight of two governments and a war pressing against her ribs. Marcus began the formalities, reading terms, offers, sanctions. Corin barely listened. His gaze stayed fixed on Evelyn. You sent food to the refugee camps, he said suddenly, cutting Marcus off. When no one else did. That wasn't just me, Evelyn said carefully. It was a team. He shook his head. No, it was you. I saw your signature. The air grew thick. Marcus tried to steer it back, but Corin ignored him. You understand what they don't, he told her. You understand what we fight for. Evelyn swallowed. If I understood completely, we wouldn't be here. That earned the faintest smile. Over the next few hours, something strange happened. The room shifted. Marcus's control slipped. The conversation became less about tactics and more about humanity. Loss, grief, hope. Evelyn didn't plan it that way. It just happened. Corin started lowering his guard, but it also scared her. Every moment she spoke, she could feel Hale's eyes watching through the glass, analyzing every breath. If she said too much, they'd pull her out. If she said too little, the chance for peace would die. Then, during the third session, Corin dropped a bombshell. I'll end the war, he said quietly. I'll disarm my fighters, surrender my strongholds, but only if she guarantees it. He pointed at Evelyn. Marcus blinked. She can't guarantee anything. She's not authorized. Corin's eyes darkened. Then there will be no peace. The silence afterward felt endless. Evelyn looked at Hale through the glass, but the director didn't move. Finally, he pressed the mic button. Keep him talking, he ordered. So she did. For hours they talked about the dead, about the ruins, about what it means to forgive. By the time night fell, Corin agreed to reconvene the next morning for final terms. When Evelyn left the room, Marcus was waiting. He's playing you, he snapped. He's trying to turn this into a circus. Maybe, she said, but he's also listening. Don't let your emotions ruin this, he warned. But Evelyn had seen something in Corin's eyes, a flicker of truth she couldn't ignore. That night, she couldn't sleep. Something about his behavior didn't add up. His team hadn't made any demands for power, land, or immunity. It was almost like he didn't care about winning anymore. He just wanted her there. At 2 a.m., she slipped into the surveillance room, scanning the feeds. One camera showed Corin pacing his quarters, staring at a small photo. She zoomed in. Her breath caught. It was a photo of his brother standing beside her. Evelyn's pulse spiked. That picture wasn't supposed to exist. It had been taken during an evacuation mission years ago, when she tried to get his brother out. Someone had been watching. Before she could process, an alarm blared. Guards shouted. A red light flashed across the hall. The system announced. Unauthorized signal detected. Compound lockdown initiated. She sprinted to the control room. Marcus was already there, yelling into a headset. It's coming from Corin's quarters. He's sending something out. Evelyn's mind raced. No, she said slowly. He's not sending something out, he's calling someone in. And then the screen went black. The screen went black. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The silence was so deep, Evelyn could hear her own pulse in her ears. Then the intercom crackled. External breach detected. North perimeter. Marcus swore and grabbed his radio. Seal all exits. The agents rushed to their stations, the heavy doors sliding shut with metallic groans. Evelyn stared at the blank monitor, her mind spinning. Ivan Koren wasn't reckless. He was methodical. If he'd triggered a breach, it wasn't a trap. It was a message. She ran down the corridor toward his quarters. 2 guards tried to block her. "Ma'am, you can't. He'll only talk to me," she snapped. "Do you want him detonating something while you argue?" That was enough. They let her through. Inside, Koren was sitting calmly on his bunk, the flicker of the red alarm lights painting his face in blood tones. "You shouldn't have come," he said. Evelyn's breath came fast. "You triggered the alarm." "Why?" He studied her for a long moment. "Because they were listening. All of them. Every word. I needed to make them stop." "You could have just said that," she said, trying to steady her voice. His lips twitched. Would they have listened? She couldn't argue. Hale's voice came through her earpiece, urgent, clipped. "Evelyn, back away now. Security team is moving in." She pressed her hand to her ear. "Wait. Don't send them in." He's not resisting. But the sound of boots thundered down the hall. Koren looked at the door, then at her. "You have less than 5 minutes before they kill the only man who can end this war," he said. Her stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" He leaned forward, eyes sharp. "My brother isn't dead." The word slammed into her like a shockwave. "That's impossible," she whispered. "We confirmed." "They lied to you," he cut in. "He was taken by your people." She shook her head automatically, but something in his eyes, raw and burning, made her hesitate. "Why would they do that?" she asked. "To make me the enemy," he said quietly. "To keep the war going. Someone profits from chaos, Miss Shaw. You've been fighting the wrong side." Before she could respond, the door burst open. Armed men poured in, shouting commands. Evelyn stepped in front of Koren instinctively. "Stand down," she yelled. "He's unarmed." Hale's voice boomed over the comm. "Take him." Koren didn't move. He just looked at Evelyn and said softly, "Now you see." The guards pinned him to the ground. Evelyn turned away as they dragged him out, his voice echoing down the hall. "Find my brother, Evelyn. Then you'll understand everything." By dawn, the compound was in chaos. The breach turned out to be a false alarm, a jammed drone signal, conveniently blamed on Koren. But Evelyn couldn't shake what he'd said. The photo, the alarm, the story that didn't add up. She tried to question Hale, but he dismissed her coldly. "Your role here is finished. You'll return home on the next flight." "Ivan said his brother's alive," she pressed. "Enough," Hale snapped. "That man is manipulating you. You're done here." And just like that, she was dismissed again. But this time, she didn't obey. Before boarding the flight, she slipped away from the escort and made her way to the intelligence archive room. Her old clearance codes still worked. Someone had forgotten to revoke them. Inside, she pulled up the classified files on Koren's brother, Luca Koren. Official status, deceased in airstrike 2019. But as she scrolled, something caught her eye. The recovery team listed on the file wasn't military. It was a private contractor, Rathborn Systems, a defense supplier tied to Hale's department. Her fingers trembled. Rathborn had been under investigation for years. Secret prisons, ghost operations, black sites that didn't exist on any map. She downloaded the file onto a flash drive and slipped out before the guards noticed. 2 days later, back in D.C., she visited an old contact, Agent Samir, a retired analyst who owed her a favor. When she showed him the file, his face went pale. "Rathborn has a facility in Romania," he said. Off the books. If Luca Corin's alive, that's where he'd be. Can you get me in? Samir sighed. Evelyn, this isn't a negotiation anymore, this is espionage. Then I'll negotiate my way out, she said. That night, using Samir's contacts, she flew to Bucharest under a fake ID. From there, a black market driver took her through winding roads to an abandoned industrial site, concrete walls, barbed wire, and one lonely security tower. She slipped through a drainage tunnel and emerged behind the facility. Her pulse pounded as she crept inside. The place smelled of rust and disinfectant. Every door looked the same, except one, marked Restricted Access. Bio Unit 4. She swiped a stolen key card. The lock clicked open. Inside the dimly lit room, she froze. There, hooked to an IV and sitting weakly on a cot, was a man who looked exactly like Ivan Corin, only younger, thinner, haunted. He lifted his head slowly. "Who are you?" "My name is Evelyn Shaw," she said softly. "Your brother sent me." His eyes widened and tears welled up. "He's alive?" She nodded. "And he wants you back." Before they could say more, alarms blared again. Guards shouted outside. Someone had tipped them off. Evelyn grabbed Luca's arm. "We have to move." They ran through the corridors, bullets echoing behind them. The exit loomed ahead. Then a figure appeared in the doorway. Hale. He looked older now, colder. "You should have stayed quiet, Evelyn." She raised her gun. "You lied about Luca. You lied about everything." Hale sneered. "The war keeps our funding alive. Peace doesn't pay bills." The truth hit her like a punch. All the lives lost, fuel for someone's paycheck. "Step aside," she said. "I can't do that." For a second, no one breathed. Then Hale raised his pistol. Evelyn fired first. The sound cracked through the hall like lightning. Hale collapsed, a look of disbelief frozen on his face. Evelyn grabbed Luca and dragged him out into the night. By dawn, they crossed into neutral territory. News broke hours later. Ivan Corin signed a unilateral ceasefire, announcing that the truth had come to light and his brother had been found alive. The media called it a miracle. The government called it a victory. But only Evelyn knew what it really was. A cover-up ending with one bullet and 1,000 lies exposed. When she met Ivan again weeks later, he was free, tired, but alive. He hugged his brother, then turned to her. "You kept your word again," he said quietly. Evelyn smiled faintly. "Let's hope I don't have to a third time." He chuckled, though his eyes still carried the weight of all they'd lost. "You could have walked away," he said. "Why didn't you?" She looked out the window at the gray horizon. "Because people like Hale make sure good men die for the wrong reasons. Someone has to stop that." Ivan nodded slowly. "Then maybe you're the only negotiator who ever won a war without picking a side." Later, when she returned home, her badge was gone for good. No medals, no parades, just silence. But that was fine. The world thought a hero had saved peace, and maybe that was enough. One rainy evening, as she sipped coffee by her window, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Thank you. She smiled faintly and deleted it. Outside, the rain fell heavier, washing the city lights into rivers of gold. She knew more wars would come, more lies would surface, but for now, one truth had survived. And that was enough. Sometimes the world doesn't need louder heroes, just quieter ones who refuse to look away.